welcome back to A Little Wilder. So in the previous video we looked at the March Nature Journal page, and in this video we're going to be doing the March page which is focused on wetland birds. Now this page has been inspired by Burton Mere Wetlands where I work. It's an RSPB reserve. So it includes some of my species highlights from March and also some of my favourites at the reserve that you might see on the wetlands. Now I'm not a nature photographer, so what I'll do is whilst I'm going through the video I'll pop in some photos and some images of the species and what they're meant to look like, and I've used the RSPB website as a resource for this. Now I didn't film the drawing and the painting of the birds in this page, but if you go to one of my previous videos from February, it's all about how to draw an avocet, and the skills there are quite transferable. So if you're interested in how to draw birds, take a look at that video. And in this video, whilst it's not focusing on the drawing and the painting, I am doing a big focus on all the writing that I put into my nature journals, where I find that information and the tools that I use to do it. So the Tom Studio Lumos pen for brush lettering, and also dip pen or calligraphy pens, and how I do that. So I hope you enjoy the video and enjoy. Okay, so this is where we have got to with the wetland birds page in the March Nature Journal. So I'm just going to quickly talk you through which species I have picked out for this page, and I'm going to put a few photos on the screen as well just to show you what they're meant to look like. So first of all we've got our marsh harrier, and now this is all inspired by RSPB Burton Mere Wetlands. So you'll likely see the marsh harriers, and they've been carrying in nesting materials, and this is a male bringing in the nesting materials. In January I actually painted a female, so I thought, well, this time I'll do a male in flight. We've got the lapwing. It's got this beautiful like iridescent feathers on there with kind of like the green and blues coming out, so that's quite interesting to paint. And in previous nature journals I've actually used a little bit of metallic watercolours to get the iridescence. Not doing it on this one, but it has been something I've done in the past and it was quite fun to do. And we've also got a spoonbill. Quite large, they're bigger than a little egret, and they've got this incredible spoon-shaped bill. And in the summer plumage they get this yellowy buff breast as well, and some crests on the back of their head, some fine plumes, let's say, and they've got dark legs as well. So there's a breeding pair. Hopefully they'll be successful. They raised 3 teaspoons last year. Little ringed plover down here. Now you have a little ringed plover and you have a ringed plover, and the difference is the little ringed plover it likes freshwater habitat, and the ringed plover likes coastal shingle beaches. So you can kind of always tell them apart, first of all, from where you are. There's also other subtle differences, like the ringed plover has more of an orange bit on the beak, and it's also got brighter legs than the little ringed plover. But they're very sweet birds, very small, hard to spot, but they're full of character. Then we have one of my favourite ducks, which is the shoveler duck, and it was quite fun and difficult to get the shape of this bill correct, which is kind of spade shaped, and that's where that shoveler name comes from. And they sit quite low in the water, and they'll pop their beak in and move it about to feed. Spoonbill kind of does that as well. And then next or last is the little egret. Really beautiful, elegant birds, about grey heron kind of size, and got a long black beak, black legs, and yellow feet. So if you ever get to see them out of the water not wading, yellow feet, quite fun. They make this kind of like bubbling noise when you're walking past the woodland where they're the nest building in the trees. It's really interesting to hear, and it's just a lovely sound. So that's a quick run through of all the birds that I have on the page, and then I'm going to do the next bit, which I need to fill it in. I need to put all the writing in, a bit like this page. So as you can see, I've already done the title, but I am going to talk about that anyway. We've got then the Welsh name, common name, and the scientific name, all done in a dip pen or a calligraphy pen. Then we've got a snippet of writing, which is done with the Lumos pen, and I also like to add in a little bit of poetry there as well. So I'm going to just talk you through how I do all that writing. Okay, so I'm just going to talk you through how I do the brush lettering on the titles. Firstly, I'm using the Tom's Studio Lumos pen, and that's because it has brush tip and it has another tip which I use as my writing pen. And you can use the same ink, it's got like 2 inkwells, or you can have 2 different coloured inks in it at the same time. And it comes with all these different nibs to swap out. This isn't like a paid sponsorship or anything like that. You know, I just bought this pen. Well, I mean, I got it for Christmas. Thanks, Chris. And then I'm using different coloured inks for each month. So for March, I've chosen this nice New Forest green ink. So firstly, what I tend to do is have a little practice go in my messy journal. So I'll just kind of write out and just have a little practice, try a few different ways of doing the letters. And the other thing I can sometimes do is I'll write out the word in my own handwriting, and then I'll use that as my like font to kind of follow. So I'll have a little practice go in my messy sketchbook, and I'm just going to kind of go through a few of the little brush lettering tips for you. So some of the rules kind of to follow is any upstrokes need to be using the finer point of the pen. Any downstrokes need to be fatter. So I'm pushing down on the pen, and I'm also tilting it to create a fatter stroke. So if you put that together into a squiggle, it's a good thing to practice before you kind of begin. Like I said before, I might write out the word beforehand in my own handwriting. And then maybe I'll follow that. With some of these inks, the pencil can show through, so it's just something to be aware of, but some of them you don't get that issue. Something a bit like that. The more you practice, the easier it'll get, and there's lots of guides out there on the internet, and lots of different like fonts you can follow as well. So just give it a go and have a little practice. There's lots of other different types of brush pens you can get as well out there, so yeah, just give it a go. I will in the future do maybe a full video all about the Tom Studio pen and how to change the inks and just go into depth about it as well. And if you're interested in that ink colour in the Tom Studio pen that I've just used, it's the number 5 Cassis colour. My title's in, and I usually put my title in actually before I even draw the birds in, just so I can draw the birds around the title. Sometimes I go in without a thought and just let it be, let it all happen. And sometimes what I do is kind of have a little think about where I want the titles and the names of the birds to sit and where I want the information to sit. And if I'm going to do a bit of poetry like this, then I also want to have a think about where the poetry is going to sit as well, because I do my poetry in a nice metallic ink with a brush pen, not a brush pen, sorry, a dip pen. So now that we've got the title in, we're going to go and do the names of the birds and our information as well. Now, when it comes to where I'm going to position all of that, sometimes I just let it come out naturally, and then sometimes I like to plan it out a little bit. So I might just take my pencil and have a little think, well, I want my titles for Spoonbill to sit here, the title for Shoveler maybe to sit here. I've got a little bit of poetry to add, and I need to think about where I'm going to put my poetry, like in my previous ones. This one flows through the page, and this has got 2 little bits here. The thing I like to do sometimes is writing around the edge of the page. That's quite cool as well. Yeah, I think I'll pop it in that nice little centre bit there. So you can see sometimes I pencil bits in just to give myself a little bit of an idea where things are going to sit. I can always rub it out afterwards. A bit about lapwing here, a bit about marsh harriers here. So to keep this nature journal nice and cohesive, I've chosen to do the title in the brush pen, and then I'm going to do the names of the species in a dip pen with the same coloured ink. You can see on this page it actually comes out darker than the brush pen, and also on this page you can see that the other part of the pen that I'm using to do my main writing is actually a little bit lighter in tone, and that's kind of like a nice little surprise with the Tom's ink, to get those different shades. So for titles, well, first of all I've got to find out the name of the species, the common name, the scientific name, and also the Welsh name, because I'm using this as a learning tool. Bit of a a Google search. You could use the RSPB website and the Woodland Trust websites, all those types of good resources for information. You might also have ID books. The newer the better, because names do change. For my Welsh translation, I'm using this Iolo Williams book to get the translated names. Now, sometimes goldfinch is a really good example. So if you try to use Google Translate, for example, and you put in goldfinch, it will not come out with the correct name. It will translate gold and the word finch, and the Welsh name for goldfinch is Nico, so it won't come up with the right one. The other thing I use is I've got a collection of, I'm knocking things over. I've got a collection of very old books, AA and the Reader's Digest, and I like to use some of these books as well, just as like little references. I look up different things and see what they say. Now, one of them's from 1973 and the other's from 1984. And some of my other books are very old as well. So whilst information might be out of date, sometimes you find this little nugget of information that's pretty cool to find out. So when I was using the older books to look about marsh harriers, that book was written in 1973, so it was saying that there's only one male marsh harrier left in the UK. Now, of course, we have many more marsh harriers now in the UK. It's grown steadily, and we've got a really good breeding population at Burton Mere Wetlands as well. So it's great to actually hear a success story, a positive conservation story as well. And that's where I get all of that good stuff to put in. And then I also, just in a notebook, I'll just take some notes as I'm using all these different reference books and different resources. I'll just make bullet point notes about what, about that species and what I find interesting, and then it's all there at hand when it comes to do the writing up. Because it actually can take a couple of hours just to read up on everything. So let's do the spoonbill first. So I've got my yellow book, and I've found the page for spoonbill. So we can see its common name, we can see its scientific name, and we can also see the Welsh word. Get my ink. Also handy to have some kitchen paper at hand. So this is kind of what I'm doing, just dipping it in there. And I'm doing the Welsh word first. Then I'm going to be doing the common name. And then I'm doing the scientific name, and I'm doing a little hyphen just to kind of show that I'm doing the scientific name, and I'm also doing that in a slightly smaller . So I'll repeat that now for all of the others. The other thing I tend to do, because when using a dip pen, your ink will take a few seconds to dry. So I try and start from over here and work my way across the page this way. That way I'm not starting over here and then putting my hand and smudging the ink. So just little things to think of. So I'll finish off the rest of that in a bit, and we'll just crack straight on with the little bit of information about the spoonbill. So for that, I'm using the finer nib. And I made some notes earlier. I'm just going to write those in along here. So it's larger than a little. I'm just going to put E in a dot because I don't want to keep repeating the word either. You can see as well I tend to move around my page a lot just to help. Here and there, always a good little tip. And then I will repeat the process everywhere else. As I said, I usually do it in stages. I'm just going to go as well in and do the poetry bit just to show that. So with metallic inks, the sediment seems to all go into the bottom. So it needs a really good shake. And then I also find what it needs is a good mix. So I'm just going to use the handle end of a paintbrush to give it a really good mix, getting really down into the corners at the bottom and giving it a really aggressive mix. Nice. That's good. Right. There you go. And one last thing to do is let that ink dry and then just rub out all my pencil marks. And there you go. The final finished page for the Wetland birds in March. Hi again. So I hope you enjoyed that little insight into how I do all of that writing in my nature journals. So I'm going to share a video clip now of finished pages. But before then, big thank you to everyone who's subscribed so far to this little tiny channel. That's a plane going past. And if you want to see more videos, please do give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So I'll see you on the next one. Bye. My neighbour saw me filming. Embarrassment.